I'm Kate Hill from Adviseable, and I am here with Terry Ryder from hotspotting.com.au. We are discussing some of the opportunities that there are still to be had in the Victoria property markets, despite some of the negative vibes that you are reading about in the press. So, Terry, I am noticing, I'm seeing, I'm hearing that a lot of the property markets, as much as I don't believe in, Victoria being one property market, but leave that aside for now, that the Victorian property markets are a bit subdued at the moment. A lot of investors have sold out. They're planning to sell. They're putting off buying there. There's been some legislation changes and some land tax introductions. We're very keen to hear what you're seeing on the ground in Victoria, and also what you think about those new legislations and the land taxes that have been introduced in that market.
So we've got two really powerful forces working against one another there. On the one hand, we've got a very strong state economically. We've got a state that's, and particularly the city of Melbourne, which has boosted a lot from overseas migration, because a lot of it goes into Melbourne. We've got good lifestyle factors. Melbourne's a great city. According to some definitions, it's now our biggest city. But working against that is the attitude of the state government. I believe it's been the most anti-investor state government, state or territory government in the country. And recently, I think it's gone overboard. It really is slamming investors with increased existing taxes and new ones. And it's like, I think that the state government of Victoria has got a revenue problem, and they're trying to milk as much as they can from property investors to prop up their budget, but it's not helping the property market there. People want to invest in Victoria because of the strength of the economy and the state, but some people have been scared by what the state government is doing and are getting out of Victoria.
And you do, absolutely, I have the same experiences. And you, in your research for your reports, particularly, let's say, your price predictor reports, which is fantastic, everyone should get one of those, and your other Victoria-based research reports, can you share with us any stats and figures, or what you're seeing in terms of sales, and how is this impacting the rental market in Victoria?
Yeah, well, the big one that really struck me recently, PropTrack, one of the major sources of good data about residential property, they produced their latest vacancy rate figures, and in keeping with the national trends, most of the cities had a small further reduction in their vacancy rates, but Melbourne had a massive reduction. They'd sort of dropped from like 1.5% to 1%. I haven't seen a short-term drop that big before, and without having investigated it, it seems to me that it's a reaction by investors to some of the measures that have been brought in by the state government, which are very detrimental to investors. So we already have a dire shortage of rental properties. It seems to me like it's going to get a whole lot worse. Yes. In Victoria, and harder for tenants looking for a place to rent. Upward pressure on rents still further. So all of that's detrimental, but I suppose you could also take the viewpoint from the viewpoint of an investor on the outside looking in. There's opportunity there, because a dire shortage is going to get worse, and therefore there's going to be good rental returns to be had. Yes. Not great if you're a tenant, however.
And that is always what seems to amaze me, that these alleged legislations that are supposedly meant to help tenants are the things that actually they're the ones that are affected the worst.
Yeah, I don't think politicians really think through the consequences of some of their stated policies and decisions that they make. They perhaps don't understand property market dynamics terribly well. There's one force in politics which would have a rental freeze, scrap negative gearing, increase capital gains tax, without having understood the impact that would have on the people they think they're trying to help, which is people who need to rent, because what is now a rental shortage crisis would quickly become a rental shortage catastrophe
Yes.
if those sorts of policies were implemented.
So are you seeing any opportunities? I'll say I do. There are some really great basic growth drivers that we have in many of our Victoria markets, but are you seeing opportunities in places like in Geelong, in Ballarat, Bendigo, out of Melbourne itself, all those areas that we have looked at over the years? What's your thoughts on those areas at the moment?
Well, they're still good areas to consider despite everything, because Geelong, Ballarat and Bendigo I regard as the big three of regional Victoria. They're all great cities, they're growing cities, they're substantial in size, they've all got strong diverse economies, which is something we always look for in a regional location. They've all have good proximity to Melbourne and good transport links to Melbourne. So, that big trend that we've seen in recent years of people moving out of the big cities to regional areas for affordability and lifestyle, those regional Victorian cities are perfect for that.
Yes.
Because people can move to those places, buy much more affordably, have that more relaxed lifestyle, but they're still very close to Melbourne if they want or need to go there. So there will always be, I think, demand for those places. They've had good growth. Geelong is an amazing market. It just keeps on producing growth, but it's still very affordable compared to the capital city, and that's also true of Ballarat and Bendigo. So there are people who buy there now will long term, provided they make good decisions, do well.
Yes, I agree. I agree 100%. And the demand for property is still there, even though there is a diminished investor interest. But like you said earlier, there's a lot of migrants that have moved into the area, the job opportunities there. So the demand is still strong. And, I have property in Victoria as well, and I'm seeing those rents increase significantly because of the shortage of good rental properties, and values are holding strong. I see good opportunity there too.
Yeah. It's still worthy of consideration if you can get over that mental hump of the static coming from the state government, which could scare some and has scared some people.
That's right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your insights, Terry. We really appreciate it.